So you've applied for a job and your application got the attention it deserved from a studio. There's a huge chance they're gonna be calling you for an interview. Now, with the times we're living in, it is probably gonna be online, but still it's gonna be live. And that doesn't leave much room for improvisation. Now, as a lead animator myself, I've been involved in the recruitment process for Techland for a couple of years now, and I just know what kind of mistakes candidates usually do, and I also know what usually makes the best impression on us, recruiters, interviewers. So I thought today I would make a video just to help you hopefully get prepared, build confidence, and make the best impression in your next interview. Let's see how it goes. Guys, before I even start, if you're new to the channel, welcome, thank you for being here. Please consider subscribing. If you're a returning customer, it's good seeing you. Thank you for being here as well. All right, let's get started. All right, so tip number one, you have to have a professional plan. Now, what I mean by this is that you're gonna have to somehow show that you have thought about the job, thought about what you want to work on, what you want to focus on, basically who you want to become professionally in the upcoming month or years. Now, I know this might still sound a little bit abstract, which is why I want to give extra context by sharing my own personal story. Now, the very first job interview I've ever had in the gaming industry was for an internship in Ubisoft Paris. Back then I was fresh out of school, I was young, or at least younger than I am today, but I was really determined and I knew what I wanted to do. Now, during the interview, I managed to explain why I chose animation in the first place, what I liked working on when I was doing school projects, and since I had studied programming before that, I also explained that my passion for creating stuff together with my technical background had helped me understand that I wanted to create systems, prototypes, and that I wanted to work with gameplay programmers and engineers to push boundaries. Now, at that time, I didn't know I had scored big time at the interview. This is something I heard years later during a conversation with the lead who interviewed me back then, who is actually right now the narrative animation director at Techland. And that specific conversation with him has helped me understand that even if you don't have experience, or at least not a lot, only the way you think can get you really, really far. And finally, and this is something that I know now that I'm involved in recruitment processes, is that your approach is going to help the leads immediately picture where you would fit best and the best way you could help the studio. And trust me, this is extremely important. The second tip I wanted to share today is that you have to highlight your technical skills. Now, you are a gameplay animator. Your technical skills are the most important element of your profile. Now, this is something you're gonna hear me repeat pretty much in every single video. That's what pushed me creating this channel and this whole thing in the first place. Now, I know some studios are thinking still a bit different. They would leave their gameplay animators basically animate and export animations, and then technical animators would take over. I am personally convinced gameplay animators should handle the entire pipeline from A to Z, and even in some cases before A and after Z. Now, this is my own philosophy, but I'm pretty convinced it's gonna become standard in the upcoming years. Anyways, your technical proficiency is like your passport to the job. Even if you don't have a lot of experience yet, if you have any technical skills, you have to put them under the spotlight. These skills can be, for example, your knowledge of game engines. They can be famous, like Unreal or Unity, They can be also in-house engine you've been working on in studios that have their own technology. It doesn't really matter. The important part is that you understand the mechanics and the way everything works under the hood. And trust me, the knowledge you got if you are working before that in a studio that has its own technology, your knowledge is much more transferable than you think. The philosophy has a common skeleton across all game engines, and bringing a whole new horizon to a new studio is always a plus, because you bring fresh ideas. You can show as well your implemented prototypes and systems. Now, I think it might be the most exciting thing for a gameplay lead, because it immediately shows how you approach problems, how you solve them, and how you think. Now, if you have experience, of course, these are going to be more advanced than for a junior. Now, if you are a junior and your systems are just a simple, strafing system in Unreal, or just you've imported animations and your character is getting controlled by these using a game controller, it's already a lot, trust me, because it shows that you have tried, that you know the basics, and that you're interested, and that's crucial. You can show as well your animations implemented in the engine. Now, when I watch demo reels, a lot of time I would see, gameplay animations, so fragments like a running loop or attacks, hit reactions, death. They're looking really good because they get rendered in whichever software the guys are working on, Motion Builder, Maya, Blender, whatever. But many times I don't see them in the engine. And well, that's a shame, because they're eventually built to land in a game engine and to a game. And you can work on animations in Maya or Motion Builder as long as you want. If it is not working properly in engine, if the filling is not correct in game, it's not a good animation to me, right? So what interests me as a recruiter is to see that you are able to craft good animations, but that you also think about the result in game, which is eventually what's of any interest. Now, if you're not yet familiar with game engines, a good practice is also to show animations in your 3D software, both from a framing you would have picked and from an in-game perspective, an in-game framing, right? So let's just say you're showing some loops, a running loop, for example, as well as some, combos. Just create a simple camera over the shoulder, for example, that would show your animations the way you think they should look when they land in the engine and in the game. Because it means, once again, that you have thought about the feeling of the animation, that you have focused on the way you're gonna, the framing you're gonna be seeing your animations most of the time, which is the framing that's gonna be in game. Now, I want to create a video dedicated on how to set up such a simple scene in Motion Builder, so stay tuned. Now, the key here is that you should show the results in game, or in the engine, or even in your 3D software. This is what gameplay animation is about, and this is what is going to get you noticed. And trust me, you don't meet such animators every day. Now, tip number 3, have your why speech ready. Now, when I interview candidates, I usually start with a quick introduction of me, of my background, and in big lines, what I do in the studio. And then after that, I usually ask the same question. Why are we having this conversation today? Now, what I have in mind when asking this question is actually 2 different elements. The first one, and that only applies to people who are technically switching jobs, is why are you looking for a new job? And the second element is why us, meaning why this studio? Now, if you're switching jobs, your interviewer is definitely gonna ask why, and this is why you should be prepared to answer, because to him or to them, it's really interesting, as it starts giving some details about who you are. Now, if you've specifically picked that studio, you should tell why. So it can be, the type of games they're doing, a specific project, the popularity of the studio, so the renown. It could be the size, so you were working in a smaller or bigger studio and you were in need for a change. It can be that you've heard about the atmosphere, many different reasons, but just have a list ready in your mind. Now, you should definitely avoid reasons as I've heard you guys were paying well, this is the only studio around, it's not far from home, or I got turned down everywhere else. These reasons are not reasons, they're not gonna make the studio feel respected, and they're definitely not gonna show that you are a serious candidate for a job, or at all. Now, if the interview is happening through and thanks to a recruiting agency, the studio is gonna be aware, but even in that case, meaning that you have not necessarily picked this studio specifically, do your homework. Go online on their webpage, find some elements that you like, and do your best matching them with your own skills. Now, in both cases, draw a logical link between your skills, your professional plan, and the studio. Focus on the job description and spot key elements. Some of these must become part of your vocabulary for the interview. And then finally, if you're switching jobs, be prepared to explain why. Focus on what you were possibly missing in the studio you were living that the new studio could provide. Things like career development, the technology they're using in the studio, the skills, so these of the team, the company structure, the work organization or work culture, or the type of games. Tip number 4, and this one is mostly for students. If you don't have a lot of experience yet, show that you experiment. And by this I mean that your demo reel should include as many animation categories as possible. So include things like locomotion. Loops are an absolute must because they're the essence of gameplay animation. You can show some action, so combat, hit reactions, jumping, climbing, dying, whatever. If you're interested, you can also show some quadrupeds animations if you're working on creatures or, birds, dogs, horses. It's a good practice to show them. You can show as well interaction between 2 or more characters, as they are really organic, and then that they require more work, and then they also show that you thought about the interaction and the reaction, the physical reaction between characters. You can show as well interaction between one character in the environment for the same reasons as previously. And then finally, you can include animations with props, so with weapons or some objects to carry, grab, throw, whatever. Tip number 5, ask questions. Now, at the end of interviews, there's usually a moment where the interviewer is going to ask you if you have any questions. It is best for you to be prepared, to have some in your mind, because personally, when I have a candidate that says, no, I think we've covered everything, and I know deep down that some stuff haven't been covered, well, let's just say that's a shame. It's also a good moment for you to show that you're interested and that you have thought about all this. So obviously you can ask all the questions that come to your mind during the interview, but to give you some examples, questions can be about the studio, they can be about the projects, they can be about the team you'll be potentially working in. This one is really interesting because it shows that you're interested in the people. You can ask about the work-life balance in the studio, about the work atmosphere, if the studio has some habits. You can as well ask about your interviewer position in the company. My personal favorite best for the end, ask the interviewer what keeps them in the studio. For sure you'll make a good impression and you'll see them for once struggle during your interview, which is a good moment for you. Tip number 6, and last one for today, prepare a solid demo reel. Now, it might sound really obvious, but I need to cover that anyway. Now, your demo reel is usually gonna be the first element a studio will see about you before even knowing your name, your face, or your resume, and this is also gonna act as the first filter that will or will not lead to the interview process or interview next steps. So don't hesitate to adapt it to a specific studio or even a specific position by adding or removing animations, or to insist on some elements that are key to a specific position or studio. Only include material you're really happy with, remove every animation that is just not great, carefully pick the first and the last animation. This one is a really important point. Usually you're gonna have a title with your name, and then you're gonna start with one animation. You have to hit hard with this one, as this is the first impression you're gonna make. If you manage to grab your viewer's attention, it's like 80% of the job is already done. And then the last animation is the one that's gonna leave a footprint in your viewer's mind, and then after that you have your end screen, usually with your name, right? So they would associate your name with two good animations at the start and at the end. That's really important. And then finally, you should alternate the pacing, the rhythm of your animations to keep your viewers' attention throughout the entire demo. If you're looking for some inspiration, I have included a link to one of my posts in my blog where I have made a selection of some of the best and most inspiring game animation reels I have found out there. So have a look and let me know what you think. Alright guys, that's all I had for today. If you're preparing for a job interview, break a leg, but be yourself and show your skills, everything's gonna be fine. Thank you for watching, have fun, stay safe, and see you soon. Oh, by the way, don't ever wear a tie at a gameplay animation job interview. Bye!